This is Digital Marketer. This week, Ryan Deiss.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Marketer podcast. I am Jenna Snavely.
And as always, I'm Garrett Holmes.
And we're really excited about today. We got a chance to invite the Ryan Deiss.
The Ryan Deiss, the man himself.
Into our podcast booth, The Bat Cave. And if you don't know about Ryan, he built Digital Marketer. He built it out of his dorm room.
He wrote this book about kind of like this lactation guide for new mothers.
And really, who better to be the authority on lactation than a male college student?
That's right. 20-year-old Ryan Deiss in his dorm room, ghostwriting a book about how to become the best mother possible.
But, you know, he's really the brains behind a lot of marketing tactics and strategies that we all kind of take for granted today.
You know, he took all of these ideas and principles that he learned from starting that business in his dorm room and kind of became the father of all of these core disciplines that Digital Marketer as a business now teaches to thousands upon thousands of marketers every single day.
Yeah, and he developed the customer value journey. And if you're not aware of what this is, it's amazing. It's the perfect way to turn strangers into raving fans. We wanted to talk to Ryan about making the shift from being a marketer and building a company to being a CEO and letting it go.
Yeah, he tells us all about this transition of he was the marketer behind all of the success in the initial stages of Digital Marketer, but he had to give up that control of these day-to-day tactics and really become a leader for this company to set other people up for success and run those processes and make sure that those strategies are continuing to work and letting other people do that for him.
And if you're someone who is building your business and you hope to scale it, you're going to like this because he talks about his philosophy on hiring people and kind of putting your baby in the hands of, honestly, people who are less experienced and a little dumber than you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he does it with something called the 10-80-10 principle. And I think this is huge for anyone who's leading people.
And Ryan talks about this big aha moments, you know, this moment where he had this realization in learning about delegation and how that's possible.
And Ryan also talks about how important it is to find a mentor, which honestly can be really hard when you're at the top. And he gives a really good hack for that.
Absolutely. And overall, he talks about this idea of the shift going from marketer to CEO. You ultimately become a consultant in your own company. You're guiding people through the processes that make the engine work. Well, without further ado, please welcome to the Bat Cave, Ryan Deiss.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be on the new show.
So today we're going to be talking about the CEO's role in marketing.
And I guess maybe specifically how CEOs can not totally screw up
Right.
their marketing teams. I know it can be difficult to do. So yeah, I think it's a good subject.
I'm excited to really dive into this concept and get kind of a 10,000-foot view of what your experience has been as a CEO who started this company on the backbone of your marketing expertise and then transitioned into this role of, you know, really leading this team of highly specialized marketers and creating a successful business off of that. So there is one thing that I would really like to start with, though, and it's a story that I hear a lot of people talk about, and somebody actually mentioned it to me the other day about you have to have Ryan tell that story on the podcast. So I'm going to request this story,
all right.
And it's the story that you tell in your book, The Invisible Selling Machine, about, I guess I'll just say the buzzword taxes. And can you kind of dive into that story for us?
Yeah, and you know what's funny is it actually does relate to the topic today because it's good to be talking about kind of the role of a CEO as it relates to marketing, both if you are a CEO or if you're in a marketing team and you have a CEO that maybe is, you know, getting a little bit all up in your business. Because I can kind of speak from that perspective. It's difficult, you know, when you shift from marketing mode into more CEO mode, it's hard to change some habits. And so, yeah, I mean, going back to that time, kind of telling the story, this was 8-9 years ago now. It was a Sunday night, got a phone call from my accountant. And like I mentioned in the book, I now know it's a really it's really bad when your accountant calls you on a Sunday night. And the first words out of my accountant's mouth were, hey, wow, you had a really, really good year last year. I now know it's bad when your accountant compliments you on what a great, year you had, because they're not actually complimenting you on that. They're saying like, wow, you owe a lot of money in taxes. And so kind of to make a long story short, I found out sitting on the couch, kids were in bed, wife next to me, that I owed about $250,000 to the IRS. And I didn't have it. And and it's not because I was buying like Lamborghinis and homes in Aspen or anything like that. I was investing in other projects, and some of the things worked out and some of them didn't. Just candidly, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know how to manage cash flow effectively and really how to set aside funds for things like quarterly tax payments and, those kind of things. So, I sat on the couch, like I said, hung up the phone, and I realized like, I don't have it. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this hole that I have dug for myself. I should also say my accountant called me on a Sunday night. April 15th was that coming Thursday, right? So basically I had about 4 days, to figure this thing out. And I just sat on the couch, and it's one of the only times I can remember actually crying in my adult life.
Wow.
And I had my wife sitting next to me, and she just kind of said, I don't know why you're freaking out so much. You'll figure it out. You always do, which was kind of heartless, but exactly what I needed to hear in that exact moment. And so, she was right. I gave myself about a day to mope, and then I got to work, and I did what I think a lot of founders, what a lot of entrepreneurs do, what a lot of small business owners do. I rolled up my sleeves. I pulled an all-nighter. I crafted, about a half a dozen offers for a number of markets that we had. And by God, by the time the, April 15th rolled around, I wrote a check for the taxes that I owed, plus the taxes that I would owe on the money that I generated to pay the taxes that I owed. So it was around, $300 some odd $1,000, and I was even. I was broke. It was great. And I'll tell you, kind of as it relates to the thing that we're talking about right now, any successful founder who now finds themselves as a CEO, or if you're a CEO and you kind of came up through the ranks, it's because more times than not, you were the person who could make the cash register ring, right? You were the rainmaker. You could, of your just own force of will, dig in there and make the sales happen, which is why as your team grows, it's very hard to turn that off. And why I think so many founders, especially founders who really enjoy marketing, as a founder, even if you don't enjoy marketing, you got no choice.
Of course.
In the early days, right?
Yeah.
Founders, kind of your first job is like, you got to create the product. And then as soon as it exists, even if it's kind of crappy, it's like, okay, we got to sell this thing, right? So if you've experienced any success whatsoever as a founder, as an entrepreneur, small business owner, congratulations. It's because you were a marketer, and it's because you were pretty good at it. And so turning that off and handing that over to someone else is one of the more difficult things I've had to do in my career. And it's because when my back's up against the wall, I know how to do it. My brain mentally goes right back to that same tax day sitting on the couch when I didn't really have a whole lot of other people to rely on. And still my brain goes back there today, but I can't do what I did then, right? There's too many moving parts. There's too many other people involved. And thankfully, I'm proud to say we now know how to manage cash flow better, and we actually pay our taxes. So lots of things have changed since then.
So what is that transition like as the owner of a company, giving up the reins to the, all of the functions of marketing and kind of switching roles into becoming more of a leader and a strategist instead of a doer?
I think it comes down to that idea of strategy versus tactics. And tactics are fun. Even as sucky as that time was, when I was in the middle of it and, going through it, and you're in the zone and you can see immediately, like, I do work, I click send, this thing happened, revenue was generated. It's like you're getting this immediate feedback, right? And you get to see the fruits of your own labor. And that's why tactics can be a lot of fun and why they can be difficult to give up. When you make the shift into, CEO or any type of leadership role, it means you have to take on more of a strategic process, more of a strategic approach. It means that the work is going to be done, through the efforts of others. And so you're not going to get that thrill. But if you don't do it, you're going to be stuck, right? If you don't do it, your company is not going to grow because it's only ever going to be as strong as you are. It's only going to ever be able to do as much as you have time in a day. And as your company grows and you have to take on more responsibility, you have less and less and less time. So that's why so many companies, they grow and they do really, really well. And then you see them kind of start to peter out and flounder. And it's because they never make that transition from the tactical to the strategic. And that's what CEOs need to learn to do.
So how do you handle giving away these big responsibilities, these marketing responsibilities to people who are less experienced than you?
In the beginning, when you're growing your team, it's simple because you start by hiring people to do the work that you hate to do and you suck at. Like that's where it always begins. So in the beginning, like, oh, I'm building a team. This is really, really easy, right? Then when you start, needing to scale and hire for the roles that you're good at and enjoy, that's when it becomes difficult. So I know for me, I really enjoyed marketing and I like to think I'm pretty good at it. So at the beginning, I tried to find someone who was this all-in-one marketer who could do everything that I could do, and then some. And what I found is that person just didn't exist. And it's not because I'm so amazing. It's because, one, I had a lot of experience doing the type of marketing that we were doing. I also had so much tribal knowledge, right? So take somebody even with more experience, because they didn't have the direct experience and all the tribal knowledge associated with, the specific company, they were never going to be as good as I was right from the beginning. They might eventually get there, but it's tempting early on as CEO. You just don't have a lot of patience. And also you don't have time for a lot of things. So my approach from the beginning, after making a lot of the mistakes that I just talked about, my approach was, I'm not going to try to find somebody who can do everything as well as I can. I'm going to find somebody who can do some aspect of marketing better than I can, right? So that's when Russ Henneberry originally joined the team, it was like, let's find someone who is really a lot better at content marketing than I was. And I remember when Russ hired Garrett, he's like, this is a guy who's better at content marketing than I am. So don't look for somebody who can do everything that you can do. It's not going to happen. And again, not because you're so amazing. It's not going to happen because you've just had more reps and sets and experience and you just know more and it's your baby and it's all those other things. It's not fair to expect somebody to be as good as you. But if you can pick out a piece and say, now this person is better than me. Now you're not having to train somebody to do all this stuff. And right from the get-go, you're watching, you're like, wow, that's really cool. Good job. And you begin to completely hand things over. You're handing these different pieces over and you turn around. If you do that with enough components, whether it's in marketing or sales or any other part that you might be good at, you turn around one day and you're surrounded by really talented people who, in the aggregate are so much better than you are. And that's when you can begin to step away for a little bit. Still, though, stepping away is always difficult.
You talk a lot about this idea of an aha moment. And the aha moments in marketing is the moment where a customer realizes the true value of the offer. So was there an aha moment for you in running your business for a couple of years and getting to that point where you're realizing, okay, I have to step into this role of CEO and stop being just a marketer?
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about the role of a CEO at its core, it is hire, train, and retain great people, and don't run out of money. I mean, really, like the role of a CEO is generally going to come down to those two things, whether you like it or not. So as your team begins to grow, you may really love, diving in and doing all the tactical aspects of marketing. But if you've got a team, there's going to be personnel issues, right? There just are. So that's going to suck up, a lot of your time. You're going to spend time talking with, accountants and finance people, whether you like it or not. You're going to be dealing with legal. I mean, you're going to be dealing with all the other aspects, a lot of operational aspects of business that maybe you don't want to deal with, but in many cases, you're the only person who can deal with it. And so a lot of kind of the day-to-day, blocking and tackling that goes into business and into marketing in particular, you simply don't have the time to do. So for me, the aha moment was when Russ first came on. And after that, Molly, and giving somebody an assignment saying, okay, I don't have time to do this, but here's what we need done. And I just need you to take it and run with it. And here's kind of my general vision. Before you, click send on that email, or before you click publish on that post, or before you click activate on that traffic campaign, just let me take a quick look at it. When I saw it, I was like, this is great. I have no suggestions. Mm-hmm. This is probably better than I would have done. When that happened, that was my aha moment. When I started to see, okay, I can trust these people because they're better than me. I'd be a fool if I didn't. But that idea, we call that the 10-80-10. I'll give credit to Richard Lindner, who's the partner at DigitalMarketer and obviously president of the company. Richard kind of came up with that idea that if you are really talented in an area, or if you have an enormous amount of tribal knowledge on a particular subject, meet with the people who are doing it. And for that kind of first 10%, give a general brain dump. Here's what I think. Then let them go and do, the 80%. And then you come back and do a final 10% to plus it. So you give them the final 10% just to plus it. And if what you look at is like, whoa, this is way off, then what you start is a new 10-80-10. So that like last 10% meeting, instead of plussing it, it's like, okay, we need to start over again, based on this, the context of what we're dealing with. That becomes the first 10 meeting instead of the last. And so that's kind of the process for how you move forward on that.
Were there any projects that you realized after doing the 10-80-10 that you had to completely scrap, or that you realized this was my vision and my vision sucks?
I can't recall a time right offhand where I did the 10-80-10 and what somebody brought back to me was so off. What happens more times than not is I'll take somebody who they're fairly new in a particular role. I won't do that first 10%. They'll come back, after they've kind of done the first 90. Then I'll be like, whoa, this was way, way, way off. So it's very, very, very rare to the point that truly I'm struggling to come up with an example of where I invested the time in the front end to do a brain dump and to tell people what I knew, and then they completely missed it. I mean, there's been many, many, many times where, with a new offer, I've kind of said, okay, here's the thing, go create the offer, figure out what it should be. And they come back and I'm like, whoa, this is way off. I mean, that happens. And that's going to happen anyway. So you do the 10, then they do the 80. And what they come back to you with, you're like, I can't plus it. I got nothing. Now what's going to happen is they're going to come to you like, okay, you ready to look at it? And you're going to say, you know what? I'm sure it's fine. Go ahead and make it go. I'll look at it after the fact. And so you look at it after it's gone, live out there, or maybe you look at it after some of the initial results have started to come in. Because there's times where on the team here, Richard and I will disagree with something, or Justin, Rondo will have an idea for something that he wants to implement from a marketing perspective. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I have enough respect for him to say, yeah, let's give that a shot. If it doesn't work out, then try this instead. So when you're finding that you no longer need to talk to them in that second 10, that optimization, that plussing 10, after that's happened enough times, that's when maybe you start to relinquish the first 10. And that's when somebody is fully onboarded. They truly own that role. And usually that happens after you've done enough brain dumps. And that's less about like, oh, they've finally been able to absorb all of your wisdom as the illustrious leader. That's generally horse crap. Usually it means they've just been around long enough that they've absorbed all the collective tribal knowledge from everybody in the organization. They've had enough reps and sets. That process, you're talking about 6 months if it's short. So you need to invest in your people. But yeah, I mean, I'll get lazy sometimes, or, I won't have time to do something. Like, yeah, just go give it a shot, and we'll have to completely scrap it, go back and do it again. That happened fairly recently on a project. I don't want to, mention. I don't want to like throw anybody, and again, it wasn't their fault. It was something that I had done. It was something that I had some pretty clear knowledge about, and I just didn't give them the first 10. I set them up for failure.
Yeah.
And that's easy to do as a leader. It's super easy to set your people up for failure. You gotta be really, really, really careful, because that's how you can burn out some good, talented folks.
Yeah, no doubt. So you've identified the point at which you've transitioned from I'm a marketer leading this company to I'm the CEO, and now I need to kind of hand off all of this marketing to everyone else and let people who are better than me do that work. So what does your role then evolve into?
I mentioned it was more strategic, but I should probably clearly define what that is. So
yeah, I feel like I always hear around here like I hate strategy.
Yeah, strategy.
I hate the word strategy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like lame business buzz phrases. But I think when we're talking about when you think about strategy, it is just taking more of that 30,000 foot view. So if we mentioned before the roles of the CEO, right? Hire, train, and retain the best talent, and don't run out of money. I would add to that, understand and seek to optimize the customer journey. Understand and seek to optimize the customer journey. What we call DigitalMarketer, we've got an 8-step customer value journey. If you Google customer value journey, I'm sure we've got some good content. I think in the Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing, it's like the first one. There's a downloadable diagram, and we could throw that up in the show notes. But, we eat our own dog food here. So anytime we're going to launch a new project, I have the team build a customer journey for it so that we understand, okay, this is how strangers, people who don't know about us, become aware of our brand, become aware of our offering. They ultimately get, engaged and interested in it. Maybe they opt in for something and they become, a customer, and then they get excited and they ascend and buy more stuff from us. And then hopefully ultimately become advocates and promoters of our brand. So understanding from a high level how that happens, having that documented, because I'll tell you, if you don't have your customer journey documented, then you don't know what you're optimizing, as a CEO. So I think as a CEO, that's one of your critical documents if you want to still be involved from a marketing perspective, is that customer journey. Have it there. You need to understand that, because if you don't know how strangers become customers, then you don't know how the growth engine works in your business. So how can you responsibly influence that growth? That's what I think what strategy looks like, is know your customer journey and seek to improve it.
When you're implementing some of these new ideas, maybe on the customer value journey, and some new ways to get subscribers or advocates anywhere along it, and you're also leading a group of people who are a little less experienced and giving them more runway into what your vision and your business is. How do you keep yourself from undermining your managers and these people who are helping to run your business?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what not to do. It's what if I'm not careful, I still do. I've gotten better at it though. You'll go to a conference, or you'll be talking to a colleague, or you'll read a blog post or watch a YouTube video, and you'll come up with this amazing idea, and you'll forward it to somebody on the team, and you'll say, we should start doing this. And because you're the CEO or the founder, what you meant as a maybe we should do this at some point in the future, you guys discuss, becomes just dogma. Like it's doctrine like that. Okay, that's it. The boss said to do it. And so they stop everything that they were working on and they start working on this new thing, which may or may not be aligned to the overarching strategy. So the first thing that you need to do as a CEO is only communicate with the person below you who is managing the team, right? Do not go around them and just throw random ideas and grenades at their team members, because you're setting them up for failure. One, you're going to make them look foolish because they're going to just start running in a direction that if it's half-cocked, if they don't have all the context around it, they're going to look dumb, but they're going to be like, oh, I got a special project. So, yay, so you're setting them up for failure and to look foolish. You're also undermining and making the head of that department look really, really foolish because now they're out of the loop. So you can't do that. And so I'm not saying that you can't talk to other people on the team. You just can't send them really cool ideas. And it's so hard to do because we have so many ideas, right? So many shiny objects, so many things that we really want to try. And we know the people who are doing that. You have to restrict that urge. So what you need to do is reach out to the folks who are there and say, hey, I saw this. I don't know how it aligns to, our strategy in this area, but maybe this is something we can give a try to. What's even better than that, however, is to meet regularly with your sales and marketing team, people who are on those teams, to get up the customer journey, put it up on a screen somewhere and say, where do we have throughput issues, right? Where are people getting stuck in this particular area? Are we finding that we're getting a lot of traffic, but not as many of those visitors are converting into subscribers? Are we getting a lot of subscribers, but not many of them are converting, into sales? I mean, I've spent a good bit of the last couple of days because we met with our certified partner program, for example, right? We've got a brand new webinar that's out. It's doing really, really, really well to generate a lot of interest among digital agencies. Signups to the webinar are great. Show up rate is solid, kind of what you'd expect from a webinar. We're getting a really good conversion rate from the webinar into an application, but getting people who apply to actually get on the phone to chat with some of our partner specialists, that's where things are getting gummed up. So what then my job is to act as a consultant for that particular area. So I come in and say, how can I help? Because more times than not, as a CEO, it's less about, well, let me rework the offer. And it's more about what resources do I need to make available so that you can do this. It is less about, let me swoop in and, I'm here to save the day. And it's more, what resources don't you have that if you had this constraint, this throughput issue that we're experiencing at this stage in the customer journey, what do you need that would make that go away? Do I need to open up some additional budget? Do we need to do an additional hire? Do I need to open up my Rolodex and call the people that I know who've experienced this issue in the past? Right? So that they don't have to figure it out on their own. More times than not, that's what it looks like. So it's not, hey, I saw this cool thing, we should try it. Hopefully to anybody on the team. What it is having regular meetings with your leaders in sales and marketing, saying, where are things getting stuck? And then how can I help? We're getting stuck, how can I help? Now, sometimes that means you working in and exercising your particular brand of brilliance. But the reality is, if you're a few steps back from it, you're probably not going to be the one writing a brand new offer, sales copy, maybe some of the things that you, like the stuff that I did on that fateful tax day, right? Where I sat up, pulled an all-nighter, wrote a bunch of sales letters, wrote a bunch of email copy. That's not going to happen anymore. Again, there are people on the team who are better at those things than I am. But what I can do is say, all right, let me make some phone calls. What I can do is say, is there a technology solution that would really help to expedite that? Yeah, but it's expensive. Okay, well, let's do it. Those are the things that I can do. So as a leader, it's understanding, documenting what is the customer journey, looking for those throughput issues, and then working as an internal consultant within your own organization, not to fix the problem, but to give your team the tools and the resources, the assets, in some case, the permission to try something new. Right? That's the thing. We want to try this crazy thing. Could lose us a bunch of money. Give it a shot. That's what being a strategic leader looks like from a marketing perspective.
Giving strategy a new name there.
Yeah.
So many people say, I love the strategy side of things, but so many people just don't like doing. And we know, Ryan, you like doing.
Yeah.
So hearing your perspective on strategy is always refreshing.
It's a really good point, though. Yeah, strategy does not mean this is just me scribbling on a whiteboard and, okay, go do that, like drop the mic and leave, right? That ain't it, right? And again, so what we talked about before, 10-80-10, maybe there's the first scribbling on the whiteboard, but if you're not doing the follow-up and helping, then you're kind of just a prima donna. But I think most of the CEOs who would be listening to this, and I bet a lot of the marketing professionals who are listening to this, the challenge that they have is their CEO wants to dive in and get their hands dirty. They're meddling with their stuff.
Right.
And they don't know how to tell, their boss, in many cases, the owner of the company, please stop touching this because it's technically theirs.
Right.
Please don't do that. You're ruining it.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of learning that goes into figuring out how to run a business and how to learn to market products and become a master of all of this. So what was kind of the process of learning all of this stuff to get where you are today?
I mean, there was a lot of mistakes made, right? A lot of, okay, I tried that. That failed miserably. Let's never do that again. The ultimate shortcut, anytime you're trying to do anything new is a great mentor, right? Somebody that you can talk to who can say, I've been there, don't do this instead, right? That, bar none, is the ultimate shortcut, which, by the way, if you are a CEO and you're listening to this, if you have great people on your team and you want to see them ascend and you want to see them grow, one of the best things that you can do for them is to help them find a mentor. So I'll just kind of throw that out there as an aside. For most of us, we don't have the benefit of knowing a bunch of mentors. We've never raised money at DigitalMarketer. Like, we've never worked with VCs or anything like that. Thankfully, we haven't needed their money. But one of the benefits to raising money and to working with VCs is you do get tapped into a heck of a mentorship network. Again, I didn't have that benefit. So for me, my mentors were books, right? I read books. And I remember one of the most impactful books on my career was a book that was written, I think, back in the 1980s called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. So The Goal, Eli Goldratt. Funny enough, it's not a book about marketing. It's not about sales. It's about manufacturing and how do you make manufacturing processes, improve like the general efficiency and throughput of these processes. And it's, it's kind of a fictionalized fable type thing. And it tells the story of this, operations, this kind of factory manager who really needs to turn around their factory or he's going to lose his job and his wife's going to leave him and all this other kind of stuff. It's, C- fiction, but it's a pretty entertaining read. And the whole time I was listening to it, when he's talking about improving throughput within the different work centers of a factory, the whole thing I was thinking about is it reminds me of the customer journey, right? Just like in a factory, if a machine goes down, it doesn't matter how efficient all of your other machines are. The work in process inventory is going to stack up in front of the machine that's down. That's a whole lot like if you visualize a customer journey or a funnel. If you've got a stage in that journey that just isn't working, if it's a machine within the entire manufacturing line that's broken down, all your lead flow is going to stop there. And that book talked about how really the job of a CEO, of a manager, of a leader is to walk around the factory floor, look at where there are throughput issues, they call it where there are bottlenecks within the specific stages of the factory, and then seek to unbottleneck them. Whether it's, we need 2 machines over here, right? We need to get some more people over here. Let's get some more resources in this. And then the second you do that, guess what? The bottleneck moves somewhere else, right? As soon as you create additional throughput within one stage of the customer journey, okay, great, we fixed our lead problem, woo! Now you find, we've got a conversion problem. All these leads are hitting. We didn't realize we had a conversion problem before because we didn't have any leads seeing the page. Now that we got all these pesky leads and prospects seeing the page, we're finding none of them are buying or none of them are registering for this thing. So now we got to fix that problem. And to me, I wish that everything just worked perfectly, but that wouldn't be very much fun. And what growth looks like is this constant movement of, I fixed it here, now it's broken somewhere else. I fixed it here, now it's broken somewhere else. And each time you move to a different stage to, improve the throughput, to make it a little bit more efficient, something else, because of this increased throughput, it becomes less efficient. But in the aggregate, the entire machine, the entire, growth factory, the entire customer factory that's in a business, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The throughput just increases more and more and more. And so I just remember reading that book and thinking, God dang it, this is working for making factories more efficient, manufacturing facilities more efficient. The job of a business is to manufacture more, not just happy customers, but manufacture more successful customers, right? So if the job of a leader is to increase the manufacturing throughput of a factory, then the job of a leader in actuality is to increase the throughput of their customer factory, of their growth factory. That's why I think it's so critical, as a CEO, you need to have a floor plan. You need to, whether you leverage our model when it comes to the customer value journey, or you leverage any number of other customer journey models that are out there, model that, because that is your factory floor. And then look, right? Where are there bottlenecks? Look to resolve that bottleneck, but then know it's going to move. And every time it moves, it's because your capacity just increased. And that book taught me that. So, the author had long since passed away by the time I read that book. But in reading that book, and it's one of the ones I go back and read again and again and again, that was just a tremendous gift and how I really figured out this particular strategy of management and growth. So read books, I guess is what I'm saying. That's a good one, by the way. That's a good one to start with. I made a list. I think we have a blog post up there somewhere of, a certain number of books that every marketer should read, even though it has nothing to do with marketing. And that was definitely, on the list.
What are some recent reads that have kind of stuck out?
I went back and reread The Effective Executive. Been reading a lot of Patrick Lencioni, who is kind of a management consultant. Like, so much of what I'm reading right now is more on the management side and less on the sales and marketing side, because we've got great sales and marketing people, including but not limited to the people that I'm in the room with right now, right? So that's great. What I need to improve on is how can I be a better leader? How can I be a better manager? So that's the bulk of what I'm reading. So highly recommend The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which is a really great book.
Yeah,
in and around.
Just read that one.
Yeah,
It's
5
so
Dysfunctions
great.
of a
Sounds
team.
like a lot of drama.
There's a lot of drama. I just went back and reread The 1 Minute Manager. I just went back and reread Who Moved My Cheese. I mean, it's funny. I'm reading less and less new books. I'm going back and I'm rereading kind of legacy books. I'm just looking through. Oh, I'll tell you, a phenomenal book that I think every CEO or marketer should read is Rand Fishkin's new book, Lost and Founder. That was a phenomenal read. I read that in it's not a short book. I think I read it over 2 days. So yeah, but I mean, I would just encourage you, look at the stuff that's been around for 20 years. Those are the things that really, they'll stand the test of time. That's when you're learning about a strategy and not a tactic, right?
Right.
For the folks out there who are like, I don't have time to read. I'm running a company, sir.
Yes.
Good day.
Good day, sir. I said good day, sir.
How do you read, sir?
Yeah, I actually do have kind of a unique process. So there are 2 different ways that I read. One, if I'm just binging on a particular subject, right? So I need to learn a lot about one thing and I need to learn it really, really, really quickly. What I will then do is I'll go to Amazon, I'll buy the top 10 books in a particular subject. This was a couple years back. We were going to start doing board meetings, like formal board meetings, even though, again, didn't have investors. We're like, this is something we should do. So I went and bought the top 10 books on Amazon about how to run an effective board meeting. And I started with number 1 and I read it. And then I went to the second one and I began documenting where are the areas of agreement between those and where are the areas where maybe people disagree. So I keep 2 lists. Everybody agrees on this. There seems to be some disagreement on this. And here's some other kind of general cool ideas. Now we come in with a 3rd book. Now I'm starting to validate. Okay, these people agree. And by the time you get to the 4th and 5th and 6th books, you're just skimming because everybody talks about this, right? And it's amazing. When I do that, I'll do that over about a 2-week period. So I will set aside time. I might set aside a couple of hours a day just to do that because I found if I can learn really, really, really quickly and take notes, that process of reading and taking notes, that's when I'm absorbing it. And if I do it in 2 weeks, then I'll immediately put it into action, right? So learning plus action, that's when true learning takes place, right? True mastery takes place. So that's one way. I won't do that more than once or twice a year. It's rare that I need to go that deep in a particular subject. More times than not, what I'm doing is I listen to books. That's something I can do passively. So there's some podcasts and things like that I listen to, but mostly I listen to audiobooks. And if an audiobook is good, if I'm really digging on it in the first couple of chapters, that's when I will buy the book and then I'll read it. So I'll listen to a book to decide if it's worth reading. And this is kind of a bizarre little tick with me. If I start a book, I feel like I'm obligated to finish it. It's like a completion, I have to do it. So knowing that's a quirk, I don't have a problem with not finishing an audiobook for whatever reason. So I'll listen to an audiobook for the first little bit. If I like it, it's cool, stop, order the book from Amazon, and then I'll read it. Because for me to really learn stuff, I need to take notes in the book. At a minimum, I read at least 30 minutes a day. Somebody can say they don't have time to read 30 minutes a day. Give me a break. You can find time. And it's one of the things, Garrett, this, it's an area that we hold one another accountable for in our leadership meetings. That's one of the things that we track, right? Did you read at least 30 minutes a day. And so we say, how many days out of the 5 weeks did you get at least 30 minutes of reading or active study in? And that's something that we report on. And I'm proud to say I don't know if there's been a day that I didn't get at least 30 minutes in a long, long time. I read a metric butt ton of books. And there's nothing smart that I've ever said that I didn't learn from a book somewhere. There have been a couple of times where I truly thought I had an original idea, and I went back and I reread a book that I read like 4 years earlier. It's like, oh, there it is. There's nothing original about that.
I have so many more questions that I'd love to ask, and I'm sure you would as well, Jenna. I mean, just picking your brain of all of the wisdom that you have to offer. But we'll save that for round 2 some point in the future. I have one last question for you.
Thankfully, we both work here. So
right.
We can do this again some other time.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I know a guy.
So what's one thing that you're working on right now that just really excites you, that just is something that you're super passionate about, that's new, exciting, and just something that you want to talk about?
We're working right now on a special kind of side project that I'm guessing people will hear about soon enough. Yeah, I'm not going to say the name of it yet. It will be forthcoming, but I'm really, really, really passionate about team training. Like I firmly believe that as an economy, like the whole world, so not just like Western countries, but we are really shifting away from this credentials-based economy where, okay, I went to college, I've got, this degree, look, this piece of paper says I know how to do a bunch of stuff, so here, give me a job, right? We are moving away from that. It's becoming way less about, what do you know, and way more about what can you do. So I just see this big, massive trend coming of on-the-job training becoming cool again, right? And this idea of we're going to hire people who are really sharp. We're going to hire people who, what we talk about here, which came again out of a Patrick Lencioni book, Ideal Team Player. We're going to hire people that are humble, hungry, and smart, right, to come onto the team. And we're going to teach them how to do what we do. I think that's the future. I really do believe that that's the future. The college and the university system, it's not able to keep up with the rate of change that's happening out there in the workplace. And I'm not anti-intellectual. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with college at all. I went to college. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. But if the idea of I'm going to go to college and I'm going to learn something so I can get a job, I know here at this company, I don't care where you went to school. I really don't. Because the fact is, if you went to school, even if you learned marketing, right? What they were teaching in marketing a year or two ago just doesn't work anymore. It's changing too fast. I think it was the World Economic Forum that came out with a study saying, 65% of kids today in primary school and basically in elementary school, they will work in careers that don't yet exist. Think about that.
That's crazy.
Like my children, I got 4, so at least 2 of them are going to work in a career that doesn't yet exist. So how can the traditional university and education system keep up with that? How can it truly be preparing kids today for the jobs of the future? How is it serving the modern workforce? I don't believe that it is. I mean, everybody I know who's a hiring manager is like, I just can't find enough great people. Great people are everywhere. They just don't yet know how to do what it is that you need done. So we're shifting back. Everything old is new again. We're shifting back to an apprenticeship economy, right? We're shifting back to this idea of, you're humble, you're hungry, you're smart. Come on in. Let me show you how to do what we do, but there isn't really a great platform that's powering this big shift. So that's what we're working on building. It's kind of what we've always been about unintentionally with DigitalMarketer and with our certifications, training people on this. But I'm just passionate about people who want it, who want really great things, and they're hungry and they're willing to work, them having an opportunity to achieve great things because companies can step up and they can bear the burden of educating folks because the parents can't afford it, the kids can't afford it, government's not going to pay for it. It really is going to have to come from the companies. That's where the bulk of my passion is coming from these days. Both how does that happen? What are, what's the process for making sure that can happen? How do you onboard new people and train them effectively? How do you document systems and processes effectively so that people can access them so that, we can really make learning more efficient? That's what has me more excited than just about anything today, whether it's marketing or anything. Right? Let's make our people smarter, give everybody a lot more opportunities, and hopefully it's the high tide that rises all the ships.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for spending time with us and sharing your infinite wisdom.
Thank you guys for all the work you put in this show. I'm really excited that this is something that we're finally doing, and I think it's very much us at DigitalMarketer. So
absolutely.
Thank you for the work, and I look forward to listening to this and many more episodes to come.
Oh. Wow. Wow. What a conversation.
He's just the best.
He really is. One of my favorite things to do is stay late after work, and we're all just kind of sitting around the couches, and Ryan's just telling us stories from all of the experiences that he's had and just sharing some wisdom. Like, I felt like that was what this was just kind of a sneak peek into those after hours sessions that we have here at Digital Marketer.
What I found interesting about that in particular is the idea that no matter what you were passionate about and what you enjoy, at a certain point, you have to say, my business is more important and I need to run that. I don't know. I imagine it's probably a lot what being a parent is like.
Yeah.
This holiday is not for me anymore. It's for my child. It's not for me to have fun. It's for them to have fun and learn and grow and learn about the world around them and to create things.
I read a book recently. Have you read the 1 Minute Mentor?
I have not.
Well, this book, The 1 Minute Mentor, was basically a fictional story of a young player, and I think it was in the financial world, and not really liking what he was doing and finding a mentor who was kind of in the same boat, not really getting that satisfaction from her job anymore, and she had, 30 plus years of experience under her belt. But anyway, this story just documents this process of and the importance of having a mentor and really what it can do for you. And it was fascinating understanding the importance of mentorship in the business world and the importance of mentorship for personal growth.
Yeah. I actually read a really great mentor book. It's about a small boy who finds out he's a wizard.
You're a wizard, Harry. I'm so glad that we got to spend today with Ryan. As always, it's an amazing experience. It was fun. It was enlightening. I learned a lot. And overall, I feel like I'm a better person for it. And we hope that you learned a lot as well. That's our favorite part about this podcast, is really being able to share a little snippet of the marketing world here at Digital Marketer with you. We've got access to a lot of these key players, and being able to share that with you is our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, and I hope if you're building a brand or climbing up a ladder that you got a lot out of it, something you can take away, whether it's 10-80-10 or just picking up a book.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. As always, we'll be back next week. So until then, have a good week.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
See ya.
Bye.